Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. Woo, I'm kind of hot this morning. Welcome. So glad to see you. You guys look ready to go. So we are going to begin. Take a breath and center into that awareness of God that lives and moves and has it.
Sanctuary as we joyfully allow God to express as us. My name is Roberta, and I am delighted to be assisting Reverend Paul John Roach as your service coordinator today. We would also like to extend a special welcome today to our live stream viewers. Wherever you are joining us from, know that we feel your presence and are holding you in prayer. At Unity Spiritual Center, we are about transforming lives. In addition to a dynamic Sunday morning experience, we offer so many opportunities throughout the week to expand your awareness of God and bring us closer to each other. Vivian Baith and friends will be sharing sound healing and Reiki today after service in the back of Unity Hall as their healing circle returns. Everyone is invited to join in this sacred time. This Tuesday's community luncheon will be a potluck. Please bring any dish except dessert, which will be provided. For entertainment, we'll be playing a trick-or-treat game. Please be sure to look at the website for detailed information on all of our ongoing classes and activities. If you're here in person, please take the bulletin insert with you or pick up a flyer on your way out. Now let's all stand and share our celebration song.
One power, one power, one power. There's one power invisible. You can see it everywhere and every day. One power indescribable. You can speak of it with every word you say. Mysterious until you know the
Please remain standing and let us repeat our church affirmation together. As I let go and let God be God as me, I see only good in the circumstances of my life. Please be seated.
Good morning. My name is Bob, and the daily word for today is joy. And the affirmation is, I delight in simple joys. Joy, it has been said, comes much more from wanting what we have than from having what we want. Reflecting on this thought, I embrace the simple joys that this day offers. I enjoy my morning coffee or tea, savoring its flavor and fragrance. Walking through my neighborhood, I greet friends, smile at people I haven't met yet, and enjoy the fresh air. I find satisfaction in taking care of my home, working at my job, or helping a friend, even if I am not with them today. I feel joy as I think of my connection with the people I care about most. I know joy whenever I look for possibilities rather than focusing on problems. My greatest joy is my awareness that wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, God is always with me. The scripture for today is from Psalm 16, verse 11. You show me the path of life. In your presence there is the fullness of joy. In your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Let me repeat the affirmation together. I delight in simple joy.
Now, as we prepare for our time of meditation and prayer, take that idea with you into meditation. Please join me. I am the infinite presence. I am the one in all. I am the truth in beauty, the answer to spirit's call. I am the one within,
ever present, ever near.
I am the one you see.
You whisper in your ear.
Within your heart there is a doorway.
Step into
The arms of love await you with these golden wings. Take flight. I am the infinite presence. I am the one in all. I am the truth in beauty, the answer to spirit's call.
It's a Tonglen meditation shared with us by Shannon Sable. Tonglen meditation technique comes from the Buddhist tradition as an ancient practice that is all about cultivating compassion. The word Tonglen is Tibetan for giving and receiving, with Tong meaning giving or sending, and Len meaning receiving or taking. In this meditation technique, we take in pain and send out compassion. It is also an act of boundless love and a way to overcome the sense of separation that divides us. Tonglen trains the mind to turn a suffering, a negative, into a positive, the cure for that suffering. It helps change our habitual habits, meaning when it is painful, we tend to push it away, or when it's pleasurable, we tend to cling to it and try to hold on to it. Tonglen is reversing that habit. So begin by sitting up nice and tall in your seat. Check in with your posture. Use your core to keep you upright. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable. Let your shoulders relax away from your ears. Soften your face as much as possible. Watch your breath as it slowly moves in and out of your body. Feel your whole body expand on the in-breath, and your whole body contract on the out-breath. Synchronize the breath, making sure the in-breath and the out-breath are equal. Now visualize a person you would like to help. This can include a loved one or someone with whom you have a challenging relationship. Imagine seeing this person in your mind. Inhale and be mindful of the energy of pain that you observe in this individual. You will notice a heavy, dark, dampening energy. Bring to mind the way in which they are suffering. Visualize being in their position. Breathe in their pain so you are taking the suffering out of the other person and into yourself. Exhale. Breathe happiness into the world. Visualize sending this person whatever it is that they need to ease their suffering. Breathe that healing energy out into the world towards this individual. You can even visualize breathing in black smoke, which represents the pain and suffering of your loved one or challenging person. This is followed by breathing out pure, clear air, symbolizing relief from that suffering, blessings and benevolence. Breathe in dark, thick, heavy black smoke. Breathe out light, clear, clean, fresh air. Continue to visualize this giving and taking. Bring in the image of your heart opening. Expand this space as much as you can. Your heart is so big. It can hold it all. Allow your breath to feel this rhythm exchange of black smoke and clean, pure air for just a few more moments. Now, you may either leave your eyes closed or open them as we move into our time of prayer. As we rejoice in unity's alignment with the Buddhist nature, I now invite our community, our Sangha, into this time of affirmative or aspirational prayer. We breathe deeply and relax into the knowing that Mother, Father, God, or our universal consciousness, is with us now as we explore these truths and our unity principles. God is absolute good and everywhere present. And Tathagata Amitabha, embodiment of all Buddha's infinite life, life of radiance of the pure land of one mind, universal consciousness, and the great perfection. Human beings have a spark of divinity with them, the Christ spirit within. Their very essence is of God, and therefore they are also inherently good. And to find a Buddha, all you have to do is see your own true nature. Human beings create their experiences by the activity of their thinking. Everything in the manifest realm has its beginning in thought. And all that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. As we practice affirmative prayer, creative thinking that heightens the connection with God-mind, we bring forth wisdom, healing, prosperity, and everything good. And prayers of aspiration, or praying for goodness for the core of the heart, though faith and prayer are both invisible, they make impossible things possible. Knowing and understanding the laws of life, also called truth, are not enough. A person must also live the truth that he or she knows. And should a person do good, let him do it again and again. Let him find pleasure therein, for blissful is the accumulation of good. Embracing these truths and principles, let us now turn our thoughts to those for whom we would like to pray. Take a moment in the silence to say their names, either silently or aloud. We know that these prayers for health, wisdom, inspiration, and perfect outcomes have already been answered, even before they were spoken. And we know that the prayers offered by the practitioner will be answered just as an echo answers a sound, as a shadow follows a form. We thank you, Mother, Father, God, for all your presence in all your forms and expressions throughout the world, throughout time, and throughout dimension. Amen. Now please join me in our community prayer for October. Divine Mind, when I let go, I am placing my trust in you, for you are my source of infinite potential and all possibility. When I let you, God, I am trusting your grace will bless my life in the most wondrous ways with perfect outcome. It is in faith I let go and let God. Amen. My name is Shannon Hoffsmith, and the prayer chaplains will be available in the sanctuary after service. Please know that that sanctuary is yours to come and sit, pray, pause anytime you are at Unity. It is a place of peace and serenity dedicated to prayer. So please take advantage of that. Thank you.
From a distance, the world looks blue and green, and the snow-capped mountains white. From a distance, the ocean meets the stream, and the eagles take to flight. From a distance, there is harmony, and it echoes through the land. It's the voice of hope, it's the voice of peace, it's the voice of every man. From a distance, we all have enough, and no one is in need. There are no guns, no bombs, and no disease, no hungry mouths to feed. From a distance, we are instruments, marching in a common band, playing songs of hope, playing songs of peace. They're the songs of every man. God is watching us, God is watching us. God is watching us from a distance. From a distance, you look like my friend, even though we are at war. From a distance, I just cannot comprehend what all this fighting's for. From a distance, there is harmony, and it echoes through the land. It's the hope of hopes, it's the love of loves, it's the heart of every man. It's the hope of hopes, it's the love of loves, it's the heart of every man. And God is watching us, God is watching us, God is watching us from a distance. God is watching us, God is watching us, God is watching us from within us.
So hello and welcome to week 5 in our series on unity and world religions. I'm Paul John Roach, Unity Minister and author of the book Unity and World Religions. And today we're going to take a look at the teachings of Buddhism. And in a way, Buddhism is not so much a religion as a systematic pathway. It's a deep psychological, spiritual and intellectual pathway to enlightenment, if you like, freedom from the bonds of the human condition. And so Buddhism has less to do with theology and gods and intellectual constructs, but more practicalities. How does it all work together for us to find meaning in our lives, to find freedom, inherent freedom in our lives? As I said, the Buddha was not concerned with gods, and so there's little mention of gods in early Buddhism. But as it developed, then it took on other aspects, and there's many different schools of Buddhism, and we find deities and gods in Buddhism, especially in the Tibetan Buddhism and in some other sects. So it was taken on board, this idea of divinity. But we'll talk more about that in a moment. Over the centuries, Buddhism, as I said, has developed from its initial core teaching in what's called the turnings of the wheel. Again, these are fascinating schools of Buddhism. And I know some people are attracted to one over the other. Some love the simplicity of early Buddhism. Others, the majesty and deep psychological insight of later Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, etc. So there's something for everyone. Let's talk a little bit about the Buddha and his early life. The Buddha, Gautama Siddhartha, who later became the Buddha, which is a title for the awakened one, grew up in a kingdom which is now on the borders between India and Nepal. And it was prophesied that the king's son, Prince Siddhartha, would either become a great king himself, even greater than his father, or would renounce everything and become a great sage. Well, his father, being very attached to this world, didn't want him to become a renunciate or a sage, but wanted to ensure that he would become a great king and make him proud. And so he decided to keep any kind of pain or difficulty, suffering, anything that might distract the son away from the palace. And for 29 years, the Buddha, Siddhartha, was surrounded only by beautiful things, beautiful boys and girls, beautiful flowers, the best food. There was no trace of anything that could lead to sadness. Well, this is fine. And it worked for maybe 29 years, but the Buddha became inherently dissatisfied with this life because, you know, if you live a totally luxurious life, it eventually gets wearing and boring. And he was intent upon finding out what was outside the walls of his great palace and all the gardens that he enjoyed. Because he'd never been outside, he'd always been cocooned in pleasure. And he asked his charioteer to take him out, and he took him out 4 times, and it's called the 4 Great Sights. The first trip, he saw an old person and questioned what was that, because he'd always seen young people. Then the second trip, the second sight was a sick person. He had no idea that people could get sick. The third was even worse, a dead person, and that shocked him greatly. And he determined that maybe I need to find out more about what's going on. So he went out the last time, and the last person he saw was a mendicant, a wandering sadhu who had renounced the world to find the truth. And the Buddha said, I'm going to do that myself. And he left a wife and a child behind and headed off into the forest for 7 years. And because his early life was extremely indulgent, then he went to the other extreme and became extremely ascetic and would hardly eat at all, and gathered around him some disciples who also were practicing these great austerities. And he became so thin and emaciated and mentally deranged that he couldn't think. He couldn't attain enlightenment or freedom because his mind was dulled through starving himself, and his body was inept. And so at that moment, a girl who was herding cows came by, and he took a drink of milk or gruel, milk gruel. And his followers, the 5 other mendicants, were disgusted with him for doing this and left him. But he found that the milk sustained him, and he began to be able to think clearly again. And he moved to the famous Bodhi tree or Bo tree, the great fig tree, under which he sat and determined, I will not leave this place until I have attained enlightenment. And as the story goes, he sat under there and was attacked by the forces of Mara, the adversary, a bit like Satan in Jesus's story, the adverse ego, all the tendencies to thwart ourselves from enlightenment. And first of all, Mara sends the army against him. That doesn't work. Then sends his sons of anger and fear. That doesn't work either. Then he sends his daughters of sullenness and discontent and foolishness and whatnot. None of that works. And eventually, after all the armies that were sent, the wiles and the fears that were sent against him failed, early in the morning, showers of blessings fell down from the heavens, and fruits blossomed out of season, and the Buddha became enlightened, became awakened to the truth of his being. And he decided that it was neither in indulgence nor in asceticism, but it was the middle way between the two, the way of balance and harmony, which is famously the middle way of Buddhism. And so he discovered then in the various parts of the night the essential teachings of Buddhism. And the first one was the Four Noble Truths. And the first noble truth is that life is inherently unsatisfactory. There's a dissatisfaction in the human condition. It's characterized by suffering. The second truth was, well, why do we suffer? We cling to things that change, hoping they're not going to change. And of course, they always do. So we suffer because we're clinging and craving things, always dissatisfied. And the third noble truth is there is a way to move to cease the cessation of suffering by letting go of having to cling to things, to surrender. And the path to surrender, the path to freedom, is the path of the Noble Eightfold Truths, which he then laid out. And, you'll see this a lot in Buddhism. There's 4 of this, 8 of that, 7 of another, 6 of this. It's a very systematic religion laying out a beautiful psychological pathway to attainment. And for those of us who like that kind of elegance, I think that we're attracted to the Buddhist path. Noble Eightfold Truth is divided into 3 parts to do with the mind, the body, and the ability to live it fully, the spirit. So the mind, the first 2 noble truths is right understanding and right thought, sometimes called right view and right intention. In other words, we can't go anywhere until we're seeing things clearly, until we have a correct way of understanding what's going on and not being distracted by fears or pleasures or pain. The second set is how to embody that through right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So to put it into practice in daily life. And then the third element is the spiritual aspect or the meditative aspect, which is right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. The techniques and teachings around meditation to enable us to move towards enlightenment or the awakened state. The Buddha called the 3 marks of existence characteristics of conditioned reality. And they sound a little depressing, but really he's intent upon showing that there's difficulties, but there's also ways beyond the difficulties. And unless you can look at the difficulties, well, honestly, you can't move beyond them. So the 3 marks of existence are dukkha, which is the first noble truth, in suffering or the unsatisfactory nature of life. Anicca, which is impermanence, that nothing stays the same, that everything changes. And then anatta, which means there is no inherent soul. There's no discrete soul. It's always constantly changing. You are not limited by one discrete entity. All is in the flow. And there's inherent good in this because if there is impermanence, then yes, things can change, right? It came to pass. It doesn't always have to stay the same. There's no discrete soul, so you're not locked into one particular thing. There's the ability to transform. A bit like quantum physics, you're not limited to being a particle. You are both a particle and a wave, and maybe more than that. So Buddhism has many correlations, I think, to modern science in the fact that it delves into very subtle psychological and spiritual states of consciousness, which again is quite fascinating. The aim, of course, is nirvana, which means cessation or the extinguishing. It's the image of blowing out a candle. So you're no longer struggling, you're no longer burning with desire or fears. You've blown it out and you return to peace, to the natural state. You don't have to be reborn again, because in Buddhism there is endless rebirth as long as you're trying to work out who you are and what this life is all about. I mentioned there's branches of Buddhism earlier. I'll briefly go over them. The oldest branch is Theravada, which is the way of the elders. And that really is a very systematic part. This is based on monastic life, a lot of it. And the aim is to become an arhat, a free being, overcoming all the conditions of life. The second big turning of the wheel, it is Mahayana, the great vehicle, and the Mahayana school looks down a little bit on the Theravada, and they call them the Hinayana, the little vehicle. So the little vehicle and the big or great vehicle. But Mahayanas develop more metaphysical ideas, the idea of Buddha nature, the idea of the Bodhisattva, who is being close to enlightenment, who decides to stay around to help others with compassion. So compassion, Buddha nature, enlightenment, metaphysical study, characteristics of Mahayana. The third great turning of the wheel is Vajrayana, which is the diamond vehicle. We may say it's linked to Tantric Buddhism. It developed quite deeply in Tibet, and there's many fascinating practices there in Tibet around this turning of the wheel. Later developments also were Zen Buddhism initially in China, Chan Buddhism, and then in Japan as Zen Buddhism. Both words come from the Sanskrit dhyana, which means meditation. So the schools of meditation. Again, you can go into great detail on all this. It's very fascinating, but we haven't got time to do that. But I hope this is piquing your interest and you want to study more about it. Let's look at the 5 principles. As we said, there is no God as such in Buddhism because that wasn't the Buddha's concern to discuss ineffable points around metaphysics or theology. He found that was a waste of time because the main task was to become free and not to speculate about things. But having said that, he did understand there is a natural order and harmony in the universe. And it's boundless, it's spacious, it's beautiful, and we are it. And so, although he didn't call it a god, it is linked to what we might see as the divine in our system of understanding. And as I mentioned later on in Buddhist teaching, gods were taken on board. They're not the omnipresent God, but they are aspects of psychological understanding. And they have in Tibetan Buddhism, wrathful and peaceful deities. Again, very outpicturing of psychological states within our consciousness. Human beings are always considered to be extremely precious in Buddhism because there's texts that say how difficult it is to attain human birth, and so what a precious thing it is to be a human being. And so the great emphasis is put on the value of being a human being, so similar to what we might call the divinity of humanity in unity. And as I said, in Mahayana Buddhism, it goes as far as talking about the Buddha nature within each person, which is similar to the Christ nature. I think it's a similar idea. And so human beings are lifted up. Obviously, if we're capable of attaining enlightenment or freedom, awakening, then we are, given great opportunities and lifted up. So very little idea of sin in Buddhism, mostly just attachment, craving to states that are changing, and we hope they're not going to change. And the foolishness of clinging to those states is the main error that we have as human beings. So freedom is relinquishing our attachment to these states. Some people say that Buddhism, and I know they say it about Hinduism too, are sort of life-denying systems, but they're truly not. What they deny, or what they're trying to overcome, is illusion, and create a greater stability of understanding what's really going on. And so they're overcoming the illusory and not overcoming life itself and trying to escape from life. It's truly an embrace of life. Third principle, of course, is essential to Buddhism, the idea of mind action, karma, rebirth, the cycle of lives, samsara, codependent origination, it's all the various elements that lead to rebirth, and the cessation of that. And it's interesting, the wheel of becoming, the wheel of samsara, the wheel of time and change, is the same wheel as the wheel of dharma, which is the wheel of perfection and wholeness, but seen in a different light. And behind me on the screen, you'll see a mandala from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. You may have gone to Tibetan Buddhist ceremonies where they've created mandalas. It's the idea of a symbolic, pictorial representation of reality in all its wholeness and perfection. And I love that. So, the wheel that confuses us is the same wheel that frees us. Isn't that a profound an interesting way of looking at life, right? Rather than I have to overcome something and kill it before I can see the truth. You don't have to kill anything, you just have to understand it in a beautiful way. Another part of Buddhism that's highly developed, of course, like Hinduism, is prayer and meditation. There are many, many techniques. Samatha, calm abiding, is the essential first step. And then Vipassana is the way of insight, the way of going into a deep state of consciousness and investigating the nature of reality. And we can look at this in great detail. There's many systems that are emphasized in different parts of the Buddhist tradition. One thing I'm attracted to as being a mystic is the Dzogchen or Mahamudra traditions of Vajrayana, and they're particularly developed in Tibet. This is the great perfection teachings, the idea that all is well. Essentially, there's a natural great perfection within all things, within all beings. Excuse me, it's my notes there. And that we can attain to that, right? And it's a dangerous path in a sense. I'll tell you why. It sounds too good to be true, and sometimes we rush to it, hoping that this is the ultimate. Whereas a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner would spend 3 years in silent meditation, maybe another 3 years up in caves, developing the ability to truly understand what the great perfection is. So it's a bit like what we might call cheap grace in Christianity, rushing into an understanding. We may know it intellectually, but are we ready to embody it in our lives more fully? So we have to be careful that we don't jump to something that's beyond our means. There needs to be a systematic approach. So I once wrote an article for Unity magazine, is it instant enlightenment or is it a gradual path? And after writing the article, I came to the conclusion that yes, it is. It's both. There is instant enlightenment, but it's underpinned at all times with the gradual systematic path. So that there is no instant without discipline. Yeah. Anyway, that's a philosophical point. We can discuss it another time. Huge amount of scriptures in Buddhism, different sutras. One of the early ones is the Dhammapada. One of my favorites is the Heart Sutra. It's short but very profound. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form, is one of the mantras there. The Diamond Sutra, tantric texts. Zen Buddhism has many different texts. And of course, the Zen Buddhists developed the idea of a koan, a conundrum, a short statement that forces us to move beyond our intellectual minds into a more intuitive awareness. What is the sound of one hand clapping, for instance? Or what was your original face before you were born? Something that you have to investigate, not through logic, but through moving beyond dualism into a deeper understanding of what's going on. Let's see, what else have we got? Living it. The Buddhist path is very practical. It's all about embodying these truths effectively in our lives, because as I said, the Buddha is intent upon us becoming awakened and living that life with love and compassion. The Buddhists take refuge in the three jewels, as they're called, of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha, the teacher himself, the teaching, the Dharma, and then the Sangha, the community of people who are intent upon embodying the truth in their lives and following the Buddha. And we could use the same thing, right? In unity, we might have our great teachers like Jesus Christ. We have truth principles as the Dharma. And then we have the community. We gather together to support each other in that endeavor. There are many precepts in Buddhism, many are similar to the Ten Commandments, actually, in the Judaic and Christian traditions. Let's see, what haven't we covered? We mentioned the Bodhisattva path, and that's very fascinating. A person who's close to enlightenment, but chooses not to just spin off into nothingness, but to stay around, maybe for lifetimes, to help others. And I love that idea that there's this inherent compassion and humility that comes because we want to give ourselves to others. Until all beings are enlightened, I will be here. And I think Jesus said the same, lo, I am with you even to the end of the age, because I'm intent even in my spirit form to be there with you to help you also become free and enlightened as I became. So that's another beautiful technique. There are monks in Buddhism, yes, but there are many householders and many ordinary people who are practicing. Many great Tibetan teachers, Zen teachers, other teachers in Buddhism. And Buddhism, of course, is extended greatly into the West. Rick Fields wrote a wonderful book, When the Swans Came to the Lake, about Buddhists and Buddhist teachings coming to America. And so there's all kinds of centers in America that offer various kinds of Buddhist teachings. One that I like is Lojong, which is the mind training techniques, 59 slogans that can really help you get outside of conventional thinking. Check those out sometime. And then Tonglen, which is the movement of giving and taking. We take on the dark black smoke of suffering, and as we breathe it in as darkness, and then we breathe out light, because we have the power within us, the Buddha nature, to transform all kinds of darkness into purity. We breathe out white, colorless smoke. The smoke is cleared from black, and now it's beautifully pure, and it goes out to bless our world. And I like that. It's a little counterintuitive, isn't it, to unity? because we like to breathe in the light, breathe out the light. But I think what it is, it's taking on the darkness with compassion so that we could transform it. And that's a powerful thing to do. So that's a brief overview of Buddhism. Again, one of my favorite religions, because I find it so profound on many levels, eminently practical. And final thing I want to say is it's funny, it's humorous. There are many texts that are quite light-hearted and humorous. And if you've ever been around Tibetan Buddhist monks, you know how they like to have a good time. And I think that's a hallmark of a true religion, is it's light-hearted. It's not too heavy, it's not serious. We're not trying to convert anybody. There's very little conversion in Buddhism. Mostly it is simply teaching in an open-hearted way of this natural great perfection that we are. So let's close with an affirmation. And I took this affirmation from an 18th century Tibetan text that comes from the Great Perfection teachings. It's just one line from it, but it might be useful for us today in the craziness of our world. It says, I rest in the naked clarity of the present moment. I rest in the naked clarity of the present moment. See, nothing added. It's pure, it's clear, it's open, it's unhindered, it's present, and we can be present to it too. So, all right, I'll say it one more time and then let's take it together. I rest in the naked clarity of the present moment. Together, I rest in the naked clarity of the present moment. And so it is. So thanks again for joining me, and I look forward to being with you again next week when we'll discuss another fascinating religion, the religion of Taoism and how that fits into unity. All right, take care now. Bye-bye.
A lot to think about here. And as we know in our fifth unity principle, we have to practice. It's not enough to understand these things intellectually. So let's look at our spiritual practice. I love about this series, there's a golden thread that connects all of the major religions and traditional non-secular ways of life. And so practice the Buddhist tradition this week of mindfulness by meditating on awareness. Place your attention on the breath and be naturally with the breath. And whatever thoughts or emotions come, just let them come and then let them go. And as long as you don't forget your breath, anything's okay. So just practice that for 5 minutes each day or longer if you feel led to do that, and reflect on your practice by asking, who am I? And what do I want? And what is my purpose? That's a great practice for this week. And I'm loving watching these beautiful intentions come on our webs. And we've got a blue card this week. If you did not get one in the back when you came in, just raise your hand. Someone will bring them by. You can put one on the web after the service. There's extra ones to take home if you want to place it around somewhere. There's a couple people up here who need one. And we're just going to read it. I think the affirmation is up until you get your card. You're going to write your name on it. So as we speak it, put your own name in the blank so that you can speak that intention. And let's say it together. I, Bonnie, will allow myself to awaken to the truth that I already enlightened. All right. And then place these up here sometime after the service.
If we all sing one song of love, one song of peace, one song to make all our troubles cease, one hymn, one theme, one hope, one dream. Imagine what tomorrow would bring if we all sing one song. If we all learn the words, just think how great the song would be. And since the song is in freedom's key, one voice you'd hear, so pure, so clear. Imagine what tomorrow would bring if we all sing one song. There's just one song that warms our day, the same sun and moon light our way. This little ball whirling in space, it's our only home, our only place. If we all sing one song of love, one song of peace, one song to make all our troubles cease. Imagine what tomorrow would bring. Imagine what tomorrow would bring. Just imagine what tomorrow would bring if we all one song.
Thank you, Trey. Thank you, Bonnie. Thanks to everyone who helped bring this service together. Collectively, we have been uplifted and inspired by our shared experience this morning. From this raised awareness of the truth of who we are, breathe in the feeling of gratitude and joy. In that consciousness, we turn now to the spiritual practice of generosity as you share your financial gifts. Through generous giving, you have the ability to give thanks for the transformation occurring in your life through these unity teachings. As we join together, giving from the heart, we have the power to strengthen this spiritual community in thriving today and encouraging transformed lives into the future. What a difference you make in the lives of our spiritual family and our world. If you are sharing your gift in service, please hold it in your hands. If you give with a credit card, including through the square located at the back of Unity Hall, please hold your gift in your heart. Please bless your offering as we affirm together, I am one with and now realize divine abundance.
And one step at a time, we change the world. So as soon as the offering comes by, feel free to stand up. But until then, please take that one more step. One more step. Are you ready?
One more step. We will take one more step till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step.
One more word.
One more word. We will say one more word till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word.
One more prayer.
One more prayer. We will say one more prayer till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more.
One more song. Sing it out.
One more song. We will sing one more song till every song is heard by everyone. We'll sing one more.
One more
song.
step. Take it down.
One more step. We will take one more step till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step.
Please be seated. We dedicate these gifts and prayers, serving and loving at the highest level in this spiritual community. We know we are divinely guided. We know that our prosperity is assured. We affirm that rich divine ideas are now ours. We know what to do, and we do it. Because we give greatly, we receive abundantly, and we are grateful. Amen. In our service today, we have raised our consciousness through prayer, message, music, meditation, and gratitude. From this place of high consciousness, let us now enthusiastically join our search team in affirming together. Joyously, I am affirming that the right minister is drawn to our congregation, and our congregation is drawn to this right minister in perfect divine order, and I am grateful. Unity Spiritual Center gives a portion of our offering to several other organizations, including a special organization we select each month. This month, we will be giving 2% of our offering to Voices for Children. This Lorain County nonprofit recruits and trains volunteers as advocates to represent the best interests of neglected and dependent children who have been removed from their homes. Thank you for joining us this morning, and a special thank you to any new guests, both in person and on the live stream. We are so happy that you were called to join us in this service. If you're here in person for the first time, or you're new and have not received a welcome bag, please pick one up at the concierge table. Please join us in the community room for fellowship. Our fall program celebration is Saturday, November 5th. Registration is required. It closes October the 26th. Kim Buhner will be out in the foyer today to sign you up. You can also register online or by calling the office. Join us next week for Unity and Taoism, when our soloist will be Eric Fancher. Please stand as we sing our closing songs. See you next week. I announced it. Good.